So this is our first example, my game against Stachnik from Bundesliga several years ago. And before we start working on this position, and of course whilst I'm explaining some positional features, you could also take a look at the position and maybe try to see what kind of tactical possibilities are in there. We could try to answer the question, why are actually tactics sometimes working and sometimes not? How does one come at all to an idea of using tactics in a certain position? Well, the thing is that there are always certain features which help us feel that tactics could be working. And usually these are some advantages we have in the position. Now, if we look at this position closely, we shall see that, in fact, black's pieces are much more active. The knight on c3 basically dominates half of the board, controlling very important central squares, controlling e4 and e2. The rooks are centralized. The bishop is much stronger than white's counterpart on g2, and white's king on f1 somehow approached the center a bit and thus became more vulnerable than before. And with black to move, looking at this position, we already see that we can, for instance, exchange queens on f4, g takes f4, and let's say play b5, with an idea to play b4, a5, to support the knight on c3, and then play for a win in this ending, which would be better for black. But just before doing this, it is always important to stop for a second and to ask myself, are there any other possibilities? Is there anything better than this? In short, are there any tactical means of using my advantages? So we go back all the way. And wonder, can we use our advantages in any way? Is there anything we see? Well, we see that in fact white's back rank is fairly feeble. So theoretically, some check on the first, on the back rank would be pretty serious. We also see that maybe we could use somehow the fact that the rook on c1 is maybe not sufficiently protected, because f4 could be exchanged at any moment, even now. And after this, after seeing that there are possibilities of maybe giving a check to the king on f1, which is vulnerable, there are possibilities of exchanging the queen, somehow all this should maybe direct our thoughts in the direction of giving the check using the rook. We should try to see how we can break through to the first, to the back rank. Now we see that white has two rooks to protect the back rank. So also maybe we could distract some of these pieces from this function of defense. And then when we think in such a way, if we see all this, if we learn to see this, and that's basically our task, to learn to see these positional factors which make tactics work, then somehow we develop this feeling that something is working here, something which is connected with opening the C file and giving a check on C1. And then the solution becomes more or less easy. And we can see that knight takes A2, in fact, does all this. It works as a distraction for the rook. On A1, it opens the C file and enables this check. And then all tactics, they sometimes work and sometimes do not work. Now all we have to check is whether they work. And it's clear that after I take the pawn on A2, the normal moves do not suffice. So we have to check whether white's concrete ideas could bring anything. So let's see, if white takes on f6, then it's very important that I give a check on c1 to distract the rook from taking my knight. After rook takes c1, pretty forced, g takes f6. I'm just pawn up. And another pawn on b3 will probably follow soon. What other possibilities does white have? He could capture on c8. And then we see another feature of the position. We see that, in fact, the rook on a1 was also not always sufficiently protected. There is queen a1 check. And because c1 is controlled twice, I just win the rook with my next move. Or I could take on a2 after knight a2. But now we distracted the rook, we open the c file, and after queen takes f4, g takes f4, we just take the rook on c1. And black is basically a rook up. And that's it. No long lines. Nothing. We just evaluated the position, saw that black was better, felt that there were some tactical patterns in play, and calculated 2-3 short lines. And that's basically it. And black is winning the game. In fact, in the game happened rook a2, queen takes f4, rook takes c8, queen f6, rook d8, queen d8. And now, after rook a7, bishop b3, black is basically queen up for a piece and the rook, and also has a very strong pass pawn on b6, potentially strong. Without this pawn, maybe the position would be very difficult to win. And in the game followed several moves, and basically there was yet another interesting moment for realizing the advantage. Basically, pretty much the same as before. After knight takes b3, of course, it is easy to win with queen takes b3, king f2, and just win this ending. Queen against the rook, 4 against 4. But a very important question always, can I do something better? Can I achieve something better? Can I use some advantages of my position? Now, if you take a look, we'll see that, in fact, there are very many ways to give checks. And as checks are usually very concrete, they pose a concrete threat. They can always or often lead to some unusual, some unexpected advantages. In this case, after queen f3 check, we see that wherever white will go, to e1 or to g1, I collect the e3 pawn with check. And then continue all the way to b3, thus getting an endgame which is won with much greater ease. So just, we stop to think, do I have something better than the obvious continuation? Is it maybe connected with check? Is it maybe connected with capture? Is it connected with the direct attacking of the king? Then we evaluate our possibilities, and that's it. And we make tactics work. So, I mean, not always it is relatively simple, as in this case. There are tactics which are more complex and that use different features of the position. There are tactics which just do not work. But basically, the idea is, as explained in this example, what kind of positional advantages do I have, what kind of tactical patterns there might be, what kind of possibilities there might be, and do I have something better? This is very important. Do I have something better than the obvious continuation, which just gives me a good position? And that's about it. So this was our first example, and we'll just get on with our examples, which will be probably getting more and more complicated and richer in content than this one.